Good morning, folks. Welcome to another new set of daily devotions here in this new year that we've just entered. And let me take this opportunity just to wish all of you a very blessed and a very prosperous new year as you seek to walk with God. Just before our break, we were thinking of this section of Philippians chapter 4, where Paul is exhorting the Christians in Philippi to be certain things. And in our last study before our break, we saw that Paul wanted them to be joyful. You'll get that daily devotional on the YouTube page. This morning, I want us to think about his next exhortation where he says, be gentle. The actual words in the NIV translation are, let your gentleness be evident to all. In the King James, it reads, let your moderation be known to all men. The original Greek word that Paul uses here doesn't really have an exact equivalent in the English language, but it's a very pregnant word. It's got a lot of ideas behind it. The basic idea is that of temperance, self-restraint, but not temperance and self-restraint in the sense of gratification of our desires generally, which is what the King James Version translation moderation suggests. It's not so much temperance in what we eat and what we drink and so on. Rather, what's in view here is temperance and self-restraint in our relations to other people, both believers and unbelievers, and in other words, in how we deal with them, restraint and temperance in those relationships. The word carries the idea of abstinence and restraint from anger, harshness, vengeance, those sorts of things. It includes the idea of being forbearing, of yieldedness. You could even say geniality, big-heartedness, that sort of thing. And if you bring all those shades of meaning together, you could say that the word indicates, and here I'm quoting a commentator, a considerate and a forbearing spirit. And that's why the NIV, for example, translates it as gentleness. It's the attitude of heart by which one generously makes allowances for the ignorance, the weakness, the circumstances of other people, especially whenever the other person behaves in a way that would maybe otherwise make you angry with them or cause you to deal harshly with them. One biblical commentator, Michael Bentley, he says it's the attitude of the man who is charitable towards men's faults and merciful in his judgment of their failings, because he takes the whole situation into his reckoning. So, for example, take a young mother in the congregation and she says something to someone that is hurtful, or maybe she can't be bothered taking time to talk to someone in the congregation. Well, the person could very easily be offended and be harsh towards her. But the gentle person, that quality of spirit that Paul's encouraging here, the person will say, well, maybe she's had a very difficult week this week. Maybe she's been up most nights with her infant child. Maybe she's frayed at the edges because of that. So I'm not going to take offence at her behaviour. One of the reasons one adopts this attitude is because one is all too aware of how much God and our fellow man has to make allowances for us. So this quality of gentleness of which Paul speaks, it encapsulates this principle of thinking about others generously. It also encapsulates a principle of being willing to forgo one's own desires and instead yield to the desires and wishes of someone else, where such yielding as possible. In other words, where there's no major biblical principle involved. It also includes respecting other people and not thinking the worst of them, but thinking the best of them. So you see how difficult it is to sum up this one word that Paul has in mind, and probably gentleness is the best translation. As Christians, we're not to be people who are harsh. We're not to be people who are always wanting our own way. We're not to be people who are unyielding. We're not to think the worst of people. We're to make allowances for them. We're to think the best of them. We're to be gentle. And the question I want to leave with you is the question that I had to ask myself as I studied this is, am I becoming a more gentle Christian? Becoming more charitable towards other people, more merciful in my judgments of them? Do I strive to think the best of people and attribute good motives for their actions, even if their actions seem at times to be such that would cause anger? Have you the willingness to forego your own desires where no principle is involved in order to accommodate the desires of others? Or are we harsh, impatient, judgmental, self-assertive? Paul says, be gentle. What a wonderful thought to take into the new year. What a goal to strive after. That in this year that we've entered, I will try to be a more gentle person with the help of God. So may God bless you today, and God willing,